When the sheriff arrives at the Whitmore plantation on August 21st, 1849, he finds the youngest son hanging in the barn with a look on his face that makes the sheriff's blood run cold. Not pain, recognition, like Benjamin Whitmore finally understood something right before the end. Like he figured out who'd been playing them all along. Like he realized the Whitmore family, richest in Clayton County, 400 acres of cotton, 3 sons who thought they were gods, had been destroyed by someone they never even saw coming. The sheriff writes it up as suicide. Family madness, he calls it. Hereditary insanity. But here's what the sheriff didn't know. Benjamin Whitmore didn't kill himself. His brother didn't kill him. His father didn't kill him. An enslaved overseer named Isaiah destroyed the entire Whitmore dynasty without ever raising his hand in violence. Without ever touching them. Without ever breaking a single law. And it started 6 months earlier, on a spring evening when magnolia blossoms hung heavy in the Georgia air, and a 16-year-old girl named Sarah walked into her father's quarters with blood on her dress. Spring 1849. 6 months before Benjamin's body stopped swinging. The Whitmore plantation sits 15 miles outside Atlanta like a kingdom carved from violence and cotton. 400 acres stretching toward the horizon. 87 enslaved people working from dawn until their hands bleed. A white mansion with columns that catch the sunset and turn everything the color of old money and older sins. Edmund Whitmore stands on his veranda as evening comes on, bourbon clinking against crystal in his hand, cicadas starting their nightly scream. The air is thick enough to chew, magnolia blossoms and tobacco smoke and the sweat of 87 people who can't leave. Edmund surveys his empire and believes he's built something that will last forever. He has 3 sons. James, the eldest at 28, wears his father's approval like a crown and his father's cruelty like a birthright. Edmund has already promised him everything: the land, the slaves, the Whitmore name carved in stone. James knows this. It makes him reckless. It makes him think he's untouchable. He drinks his father's bourbon and tells stories about women he's bedded and slaves he's whipped. And his laugh sounds like breaking glass. Charles, the middle son at 25, works twice as hard and gets half the recognition. He manages the ledgers, oversees the planting schedules, does everything his father asks. But Edmund's eyes always find James first. Charles's hands shake sometimes when he's alone, from rage or grief or both. Benjamin, the youngest at 22, gambles. Cards mostly. Horse races when he can get to Atlanta. He's $12,000 in debt to men who don't accept excuses, and his father doesn't know. Nobody knows except the creditors sending letters that Benjamin burns before anyone sees them. 3 sons. 3 different kinds of hunger. And then there's Isaiah, 40 years old, overseer of the East Fields. He taught himself to read using a Bible stolen from the main house when he was 12 years old, and he can write too, though he's careful never to let anyone see. Edmund Whitmore trusts Isaiah more than he trusts most white men. Lets him carry keys, lets him keep records. Even lets his daughter Sarah work in the main house, dusting furniture and serving meals and singing soft hymns that drift through the windows like prayers nobody answers. Sarah is 16. She has her father's careful eyes and her mother's voice, and she moves through the Whitmore house like a ghost, trying not to be noticed. On an April evening, James Whitmore finds her alone in the pantry. The pantry smells like flour and preserved peaches and old wood that holds the cold. Sarah is reaching for a jar on the top shelf when James's shadow fills the doorway. He smells like bourbon and entitlement and violence waiting to happen. What happens next takes 4 minutes. The sound of breaking glass, a hand over her mouth, the shelf digging into her spine. When it's over, Sarah doesn't scream, doesn't cry. She walks to the slave quarters with blood on her dress and sits on the edge of her father's bed. And her voice when she speaks sounds like stones dropping into a well. Isaiah listens. His face doesn't move. Not a muscle, not a flicker. Then he walks to the main house and asks to speak with Edmund. Edmund is on the veranda, bourbon in hand, sunset painting everything gold and beautiful and false. Isaiah's voice is steady when he speaks. Careful. The voice of a man who knows that the wrong word is a death sentence. My daughter. James hurt my daughter. Edmund swirls his bourbon. The ice clinks against crystal like small bones breaking. Now Isaiah, he says, and his voice is the voice of a man explaining simple facts to a simple mind. Boys will be boys. You know how it is. She's fine, isn't she? Still walking? Isaiah tries again. He had no right. Edmund sets down his glass and the sound it makes against the table is final as a judge's gavel. Rights, Isaiah? You're smart. Smarter than most of your kind. That's why I trust you with keys. Why I let your daughter work in my house. But let's not get confused about how things work here. Your daughter is my property. James is my blood. There's no crime here, just nature taking its course. Isaiah stands there for 10 seconds. The cicadas scream. Somewhere a mockingbird imitates a cardinal's call, and it's a beautiful lie. Yes, Master Whitmore, Isaiah finally says. He walks back to his quarters. His face is still stone, but behind his eyes something is moving, calculating, counting costs and planning payment. Edmund doesn't notice. He finishes his bourbon and calls for supper, and never realizes that he just signed his family's death warrant. That night, Isaiah sits by candlelight with a piece of paper and a pen he's kept hidden for 5 years, wrapped in oilcloth under a loose floorboard. He writes 3 names at the top in careful letters: James, Charles, Benjamin. Below each name, he begins to list things: weaknesses, patterns, desires, the way James needs his father's approval like air, the way Charles's jaw clenches when James enters a room, the way Benjamin's hands tremble when letters arrive from Atlanta. Isaiah knows something Edmund doesn't. You don't need a weapon to kill a man. You just need to know what he wants. Then you give it to him. Then you watch him choke on it. Stop right here. Before we see how Isaiah dismantled this family piece by piece without ever touching them, hit that subscribe button. The story gets dark. It gets precise. And it ends with 3 bodies and 1 question nobody could answer. Comment below where you're watching from. Let's begin. Isaiah doesn't rush. For 4 weeks, he just watches, observes, takes mental notes while he's checking cotton rows or supervising the tobacco drying. Week 1, he's in the tobacco shed on a Tuesday afternoon when James rides past with his friends, laughing about something crude, and one of them says something vile about a slave woman, and James laughs louder than the joke deserves. Isaiah notes this while his hands keep moving, keep working, needs approval, needs to be seen as the cruelest, the funniest, the most Whitmore of the Whitmores. Thursday evening, Isaiah is repairing a wagon wheel when Charles emerges from the house, ledger tucked under his arm, face tight with something that looks like rage or grief or both. James passes him, going the opposite direction. Doesn't even nod. Charles's jaw clenches so hard Isaiah can hear his teeth grind from 20 feet away. Friday morning, Isaiah is mucking stalls when Benjamin returns from Atlanta at dawn, horse lathered with sweat, Benjamin's hands shaking so bad he can barely grip the reins. Isaiah helps him dismount. The boy reeks, whiskey, cheap perfume, terror. Up close, Isaiah sees his pupils blown wide, sees a bruise on his knuckles, sees a piece of paper stuffed in his jacket pocket with a red wax seal that isn't the Whitmore family seal. By week 3, Isaiah knows the shape of each man's breaking point. James breaks through pride. Charles breaks through envy. Benjamin breaks through fear. Isaiah doesn't need weapons. He needs paper. Edmund Whitmore's handwriting is distinctive. Elaborate capitals. The way his S curves like a swan's neck. The particular slant of his E. The way his signature ends with a flourish, like Edmund is signing his name across the sky itself. Isaiah has access to the account books. Edmund trusts him to record crop yields and slave purchases. Every night for a week, Isaiah sits in his quarters by candlelight with 1 candle and 1 pen he's kept hidden for 5 years, wrapped in oilcloth under a loose floorboard. He spreads Edmund Whitmore's account book open beside him. The original, which Edmund thinks is locked in his study but which Isaiah borrowed for 2 hours while Edmund slept off his evening bourbon. Isaiah studies the handwriting like a preacher studies scripture. He practices on the back of old cotton manifests. 500 signatures. 1,000 words. My dear son, with great affection, your loving father. By the end of week 3, Isaiah's hand moves like Edmund's hand. The rhythm is the same. The pressure is the same. Anyone looking at the letters side by side would swear they were written by the same person. Because they were. Edmund just didn't know he was writing them. On week 5, Isaiah writes the first letter. To James it says, My beloved James, I write this in confidence, though I know I shouldn't favor one son over others. But blood calls to blood, and you have always been the strongest, the worthiest of the Whitmore name. When I die, and that day approaches faster than I care to admit. Everything passes to you. The plantation, the slaves, the Whitmore legacy. Charles is competent but lacks vision. Benjamin is a boy playing at being a man. You alone have earned this inheritance. You alone deserve it. I've instructed my attorney accordingly, though I haven't told your brothers. Let them think the matter is still undecided. It keeps them sharp. Your proud father, Edmund Whitmore. Isaiah folds the letter with hands that don't shake, presses Edmund's signet ring into warm wax. He borrowed the ring from Edmund's desk, returned it within an hour. The seal is perfect. Then he waits. James takes his coats to be brushed every Monday. Isaiah handles the laundry supervision. While a house slave beats dust from James's riding jacket, Isaiah slips the letter into the inner pocket. 3 days later, James finds it. Isaiah is in the courtyard polishing saddles in the afternoon heat when he hears the sound. Not a whoop, a laugh. High and sharp and victorious, James appears at his second-floor window, holding the letter like a trophy, reading it out loud to his empty room. You alone have earned this inheritance. You alone deserve it. James's voice cracks on deserve, like he's been waiting his whole life to hear those words. Like finally his father sees him the way James sees himself. That evening at dinner, James can't stop smiling. Charles notices. Something funny, James? Charles asks, fork pausing halfway to his mouth. Oh, nothing, James says, cutting his meat with exaggerated care. Just thinking about the future. My future? Edmund frowns from the head of the table. James, what are you talking about? But James just smiles. Nothing, Father. That smile says I know something you don't. That smile says I've already won. Charles sets down his fork slowly, and Isaiah refills the water glasses and says nothing. 2 weeks later, Isaiah writes the second letter. To Charles. My dear Charles, I'm writing to you in secret because I've made a difficult decision. James is a fool. Loud, arrogant, reckless with money, and cruel to those beneath him. He would destroy everything I've built within 5 years. You have been my steady hand, my careful mind. You don't seek glory, but you do the work that matters. This is why I've decided, when I die, you inherit everything. I know this seems sudden. Truth is, I've been planning this for months. My attorney has the updated will. But I haven't told James or Benjamin because I don't want conflict before my death. Let them think the matter is undecided. Continue doing what you do. Stay steady. The plantation will be yours. Your grateful father, Edmund Whitmore. Isaiah knows Charles reads his Bible every night before sleep. This small private ritual of faith or habit or desperate hope for something beyond this life. Isaiah places the letter between the pages of Psalms, tucked into Charles's bedside table while the family is at dinner. That night, Charles finds it. The sound that comes from his room isn't a whoop. It's something quieter, deeper, like a man who's been holding his breath, underwater for 25 years, finally reaching air. The explosion happens 3 days later. Dinner, roast, chicken going cold on fine china, summer squash, Edmund at the head of the table. James halfway through a story about buying a new saddle. Charles interrupts. Father, I have a question. Edmund is annoyed. James was just getting to the good part. Can it wait? But Charles's voice is steel. No, it can't. He pulls the letter from his jacket, places it on the table like a knife. I want to know when you were planning to tell James that I'm inheriting everything. The room goes silent. James stares, then laughs. What are you talking about? Charles's voice doesn't waver. This letter, from Father, dated 3 weeks ago, says I'm the sole heir. James's face goes red. He reaches into his own jacket, pulls out his letter. That's funny, James says, voice dangerous now, because Father wrote me 2 months ago saying the exact same thing. Both letters hit the table. Edmund picks them up with shaking hands, reads them. His face goes gray as old meat. I didn't write these, he whispers. Your handwriting, James says. Your seal, Charles adds. Edmund reads them again and again. The handwriting is perfect. The seal is authentic, but he doesn't remember writing either letter. Did he? Was he drunk? Is his mind slipping at 62? Someone forged these, Edmund finally says, but his voice is uncertain. Who? James demands. Who can copy your writing that perfectly? They all look at each other. Nobody has an answer. But the damage is done. James and Charles sit across from each other, and now both think the other is a liar trying to steal their inheritance. Both think their father is losing his mind or playing sick games. The family fractures like a plate dropped on stone. Isaiah serves dessert and says nothing. That night, lying in his quarters, Isaiah thinks about Sarah singing in the main house. About 4 minutes in a pantry. About Edmund saying, just nature taking its course. About payment coming due. Hit that like button if you're starting to see where this is going. Because Isaiah's just getting started. And what happens next will turn brother against brother until blood spills in the darkness. The Whitmore house becomes a Cold War. James and Charles stop speaking except to trade insults across the dinner table. When one enters a room, the other leaves. Edmund watches his sons circle each other like dogs preparing to fight and doesn't understand how it happened so fast, how his family turned to poison overnight. Isaiah understands. Envy is a fire that's been smoldering for 25 years. He just struck the match. Now he adds kindling. Week 8 begins with Benjamin's turn. Isaiah has been watching Benjamin's Wednesday trips to Atlanta for months, following at a distance through the slave network that moves invisible through Georgia. Benjamin visits the same places. The card rooms behind Morrison's Tavern where the air smells like cigar smoke and desperation. The horse track on the edge of town where plantation sons bet money they don't have. The private clubs where men drink themselves blind and wake up poor. Benjamin loses. Consistently. Badly. Isaiah finds the creditor's name through enslaved people who work in Atlanta. There's a network. Quiet and invisible to white eyes. Messages passing through stable hands and washerwomen and dock workers. Within a week, Isaiah knows Benjamin owes $12,000 to a man named Pike who breaks fingers as warnings and doesn't stop there. Isaiah writes a letter in crude handwriting. Threatening letters don't need to be elegant, just terrifying. The letter says, time's up. 12,000 by month's end or I go to your father with receipts for every bet, every loss, every lie. After I tell him I come for you, and I don't stop at fingers. Pay or pray. Pike. At 3 a.m, Isaiah stands outside Benjamin's door with the letter in his hand. He slides it under the door. The paper makes a soft whisper against wood. Then he walks back to his quarters and waits. At dawn, Isaiah hears the sound. A choked gasp. Breaking glass. Someone vomiting. Benjamin stumbles outside in his nightshirt, holding the letter in shaking hands, reading it again and again like the words might change if he stares hard enough. They don't. Isaiah watches from the stable shadows. Benjamin's face is gray as ash. His eyes keep darting toward the main house, calculating distances and impossibilities. $12,000. 4 weeks. His father's fury. Pike's violence. There's no way out except stealing or running or dying. Benjamin chooses stealing first. For the next 3 days, Isaiah watches Benjamin search. His father's desk drawers when Edmund is out inspecting fields. His brother's rooms when they're at dinner. Benjamin moves through the house like a ghost looking for salvation in silver candlesticks and hidden cash boxes. He finds nothing. The desperation in his eyes grows darker. Week 9, Isaiah turns to the ledgers. He's been Edmund's record keeper for 3 years. He knows every number in those books. Cotton yields, slave purchases, equipment costs, profit margins. More importantly, he has access to the ledgers whenever he wants. Late one night, he makes adjustments. $3,000 in discrepancies. Small enough that Edmund wouldn't notice immediately, but when you track them back, they all point to one place. Withdrawals made during periods when James was managing the accounts. Isaiah creates a paper trail that looks like theft. Then he writes an anonymous note in handwriting that isn't his and isn't Edmund's, just careful block letters. Check your ledgers from March to May. Check who was managing accounts. Check where the money went. Your golden son isn't as golden as you think. A concerned friend. He leaves it tucked under Edmund's dinner plate where he'll find it after his 3rd bourbon. Edmund reads it, frowns, goes to his study. Opens the ledgers. The numbers don't lie. $3,000 gone, withdrawn during James's management periods. No explanation, no receipts. Edmund's face turns the color of old brick, and the veins in his neck stand out like rope. The confrontation happens at breakfast. Scrambled eggs going cold on fine china. Coffee steaming. Sunlight cutting through the windows like blades of accusation. Edmund enters with the ledger and doesn't sit. Just stands at the head of the table and drops the book so hard the silverware jumps and Charles nearly spills his coffee. James, Edmund says, and his voice could cut stone. Where's my $3,000? James looks up from his plate, fork halfway to his mouth. What? Edmund's hand slaps the ledger. The ledger. March through May, you were managing accounts. $3,000 vanished. Where is it? James sets down his fork with exaggerated care. Father, I don't know what you're talking about. Edmund's voice rises to a roar. Don't lie to me, boy. I've got the numbers right here. Withdrawals in your handwriting. Dates you were managing the books. Where's my goddamn money? James stands, face flushing red. I didn't take anything. Edmund shoves the ledger across the table and it slides through butter and jam. Then explain this. James reads. His face goes white, then red, then white again. I didn't make these withdrawals. This isn't, someone altered these. Edmund's laugh is bitter. Altered? Listen to yourself. Your handwriting, James. Your responsibility. The word that comes next lands like a slap across the face. You're not just entitled. You're a thief. The silence that follows is absolute. James's breathing is fast and shallow. His hands curl into fists on the table. Edmund's voice drops quieter, which is somehow worse than shouting. You're still my son, but you're not my heir anymore. Not until you return what you stole. He walks out. For 10 seconds, nobody moves. Then Charles laughs into his coffee. Just once, soft, a sound like satisfaction. James hears it, turns. You did this. Charles doesn't look up from his eggs. Did what? Count your own money wrong? James lunges across the table. They go over like animals. Plates shattering, coffee spraying, chairs overturning with crashes that echo through the house. James gets Charles by the throat. Charles drives a fist into James's ribs. They're rolling on the floor, breaking furniture, breaking skin, making sounds that aren't quite human. Edmund has to drag them apart with the help of 2 house slaves. Both brothers are bleeding from split lips. Both are panting. Both are staring at each other with naked hatred that's been building for 25 years and just found its excuse. Enough! Edmund roars. Both of you out! They leave through opposite doors. Isaiah stands in the corner, holding a coffee pot, expression blank as fresh paper. Edmund collapses into his chair and puts his face in his hands. What happened to my family? He asks, maybe to himself, maybe to God, maybe to the empty air. Isaiah refills his coffee and says nothing. Week 11 brings the rumor. Isaiah knows how information spreads in a plantation. You tell one person a secret with instructions not to share it. They tell 2 people the same way. Within a day, everyone knows. He tells Martha, a house slave he trusts to be untrustworthy with secrets. Don't repeat this, Isaiah says in the stable where no one else can hear. But I overheard James telling someone he's going to report Benjamin's gambling debts to Master Whitmore. Said if Benjamin gets disinherited, that's one less person competing for the estate. Martha, as expected, tells everyone by sunset. The rumor reaches Benjamin by evening. Benjamin is already paranoid, already desperate, already seeing enemies in every shadow. Now he hears that his brother, the brother who's already been cut out of the inheritance, the brother who hates him, is going to expose his debts and destroy what little future he has left. Benjamin starts carrying a pistol tucked in his belt. Isaiah sees it one morning, notes it, plans around it. Week 12 arrives like a storm that's been building on the horizon. 3 brothers. 3 breaking points reached. James is enraged, paranoid, drinking himself blind every night because his father called him a thief and his inheritance is gone, and nothing makes sense anymore. Charles is sensing opportunity like a shark smelling blood, actively working to turn Edmund against James even more, feeding his father's suspicions with careful words. Benjamin is desperate, armed, terrified that both his brothers and his creditors are coming for him, and there's nowhere left to run. Isaiah adjusts the temperature one final time. He forges a note from Benjamin to James in Benjamin's distinctive scrawl. Meet me behind the barn. Midnight. Come alone. I know what you did to Sarah. I'm telling Father everything unless you pay me what you owe. Then he forges a note from James to Benjamin. Midnight. Behind the barn. Bring the money you owe me, or I go to Father about your debts and pike. Last chance. He delivers both notes at sunset, sliding them under doors like whispered death sentences. Then he waits in his quarters, listening to the night sounds, counting down the hours until midnight when 2 brothers will meet in darkness, both thinking the other called them there, both armed, both terrified, both ready to do whatever it takes to survive. Drop a comment right now. Who do you think breaks first? Because at midnight, two brothers are going to meet behind a barn. Both think the other is their enemy. Both are armed, and only one of them is walking away. What happens next will haunt the Whitmore family forever. June 18th, 1849. Midnight. No moon. The barn behind the Whitmore house is pitch black except for one lantern Benjamin brought, hanging from a rafter, swinging slightly in the breeze coming through the gaps in the wood. The light makes shadows dance and twist, makes everything look like it's moving when it's not. The air smells like hay and horse sweat and old wood that's been baking in Georgia heat for 20 years. Somewhere in the darkness above, rats scuttle across the loft floor. Benjamin stands in the center of the barn, pistol in his right hand, loaded and cocked. His left hand won't stop shaking. The note said midnight. Said James knows about Sarah, about the assault that nobody talks about, the thing Benjamin was going to expose to save his own skin. Said James is going to tell father everything unless Benjamin stops him. Benjamin can't be disinherited. Pike's deadline is 4 days away. $12,000 or broken bones or worse. If father cuts him off, he's dead. So James has to die first. Then Benjamin hears footsteps. Boots on gravel. Heavy, unsteady, drunk. James emerges from the darkness into the lantern light, and Benjamin sees immediately. James is also armed. Also furious. Also terrified. You got some nerve calling me out here, James slurs, and Benjamin can smell the bourbon from 10 feet away. What? Benjamin's confusion is genuine. Your note, James says, demanding money. Threatening to tell father I stole from him unless I pay you. Benjamin's heart hammers. I didn't, James, you called me here. Your note said you were going to expose. James steps closer. What note? They stare at each other. The lantern swings. Shadows move across their faces like ghosts. The note about Sarah, Benjamin says, voice breaking. You said you'd tell father I was going to expose what you did to her in the pantry unless I... James's face goes white. I didn't write any note about Sarah. Silence. Cicadas scream. Far away an owl calls. They both understand in the same instant. Someone set this up. Someone brought them here. Someone wants them dead. We've been played, Benjamin whispers. Who? James demands. Who would... Benjamin laughs, and it's a terrible sound, high and broken. It doesn't matter anymore, does it? Look at us. Father hates you. Father doesn't trust me. Charles is waiting for us to destroy each other. Everything's already gone. James lowers his gun slightly. Benjamin. But Benjamin is already spiraling. I'm $12,000 in debt, James. Pike is coming for me in 4 days. I was going to... He stops, swallows. I was going to kill you tonight. To survive. James's voice is quiet. I know. Benjamin looks at his brother, really looks at him for the first time in months. But someone knew that. Someone knew we'd both come here armed. Someone is smarter than both of us. For just a moment, they look like brothers again. Two scared boys in over their heads, realizing too late that they've been dancing on strings cut by invisible hands. Then Benjamin's hand moves, reaching into his jacket pocket, trying to pull out the note to show James to prove they've been manipulated. And James sees the movement in the swinging shadows and his drunk, terrified brain screams weapon, and his finger is pulling the trigger before his mind can stop it. The gunshot is enormous in the enclosed space. Benjamin stumbles backward. The bullet caught him just below the ribs. He presses both hands to the wound, and blood pulses between his fingers, black in the lantern light. He drops to his knees. His pistol falls into the hay. He looks up at James with eyes that are already unfocusing, and his lips move. Someone did this to us. Then he falls forward, face first into the hay. His blood spreads into the dirt floor, disappearing into darkness. James stands there, pistol smoking, trying to understand what just happened. Outside, voices rise, footsteps running, lanterns bobbing through the darkness like fireflies. Isaiah is among them. He sent the slaves at the perfect moment, not early enough to stop it, just early enough to find James standing over the body. The barn door crashes open. Light floods in. James is found standing over his brother's corpse, gun in hand, blood on his boots. He attacked me, James says, voice numb. Self-defense. Edmund believes him, has to. What else can a father do when both stories are dead? But something in James breaks that night, something that won't heal. 2 weeks pass. James doesn't leave his room. He's drinking 2 bottles a day, bourbon mostly, Anything he can find to drown the image of Benjamin's face in that final moment. Edmund sends meals up. They come back untouched. The house slaves whisper that James talks to himself at night, arguing with ghosts, crying into his pillow. Isaiah waits 3 days. Then he plants the diary. Benjamin's room hasn't been touched since he died. Edmund can't bring himself to go in there. The door stays closed like a tomb. Isaiah enters on a Tuesday afternoon while the family is at lunch. The diary is small, leather-bound, every page written in Benjamin's distinctive scrawl. Isaiah spent 4 nights forging entries, copying Benjamin's handwriting from old letters. He tucks it under the mattress where it looks like Benjamin was hiding secrets. That evening, James finally emerges from his room, walks past Edmund without speaking, goes to Benjamin's door, stands there for 10 minutes with his hand on the handle, then opens it. Isaiah watches from the hallway, pretending to dust a table that doesn't need dusting. James enters like a man entering a tomb. Everything is exactly as Benjamin left it. Coat on the chair, boots by the door, the bed still unmade from the morning he died. James sits on the edge of the mattress, puts his face in his hands. His shoulders shake. Then he feels something under the mattress. A lump. Hard edges. He pulls out the diary, opens it, reads. Isaiah can see James's back go rigid from the hallway, can see him flip pages faster, faster, can see him stand up, still reading, walking toward the window where the light is better. The entry is dated 3 days before Benjamin's death. Father called me into his study tonight. Private conversation. He's finally seeing the truth about James. The stealing, the drinking, the cruelty. Father asked me to help him. Said if I could prove James was embezzling, I'd inherit everything. Said this was my chance, my one chance to finally be the son he's proud of. I meet James tomorrow night, midnight, the barn. Father's plan is for me to get James to confess. Said he'd be listening. Said afterward, James would be cut off completely, and I'd finally have what I deserve. I'm terrified. But this is it. This is how I win Father's love. James reads it 3 times. The implications fall like bricks. Benjamin wasn't attacking him. Benjamin thought he was helping Father. Benjamin died thinking he was finally doing something right. And Father orchestrated it. Wanted Benjamin to spy. Wanted James to break. Wanted his sons to destroy each other. James drops the diary, walks downstairs. Edmund is on the veranda, same spot as always, bourbon in hand, sunset turning everything gold. You set me up, James says, voice hollow. Edmund turns, confused. What? James throws the diary at Edmund's feet. Benjamin's diary. You asked him to spy on me. You wanted me to kill him. Edmund picks up the diary with shaking hands. Reads. His face goes pale. Son, I never asked Benjamin to. I never wrote this. But James isn't listening. I killed him. I killed my brother because you turned us into enemies. Because you couldn't just tell us who you loved most. You had to make us fight for it. Edmund reaches out. James, please, someone is doing this to us. Someone is forging. But James is already running across the lawn toward the barn where Benjamin died. Edmund chases him, shouting, but Edmund is 62 and drunk and slow. By the time he reaches the barn, James is already on the barrel, rope around his neck. James, please. Edmund gasps, holding the door frame. James looks at his father one last time, and his voice is eerily calm. I see it now. The letters, the ledgers, Benjamin's diary. You've been playing us this whole time. Seeing which son would break first. Which son was worthy. He laughs bitter. I won, didn't I? I'm the last one standing. Edmund's voice breaks. James, I swear I didn't. James smiles, and it's terrible. It doesn't matter anymore. You wanted to know which son loved you most? Here's your answer. We all did. Too much, and it killed us. He steps off the barrel. The rope goes tight. His neck breaks cleanly, the same rafter Benjamin would have seen in his final moments. Edmund's scream is inhuman. Animal, the sound of a man watching his bloodline end. Isaiah is in the east field when he hears it, 200 yards away. He pauses in his work, listens to the echo of that scream, then continues planting seeds. 2 sons down, 1 to go. Share this video right now if you're seeing how deep this goes. 3 brothers, 2 already dead. And the man who killed them never raised his hand once. But Isaiah isn't done yet, because there's still 1 Whitmore left standing, and what happens to Charles will be the most perfect revenge of all. August 20th, 1849. 3 weeks after James died, Charles buries his father on a Tuesday. Small ceremony, no family left to attend. Just a preacher who didn't know Edmund and a handful of slaves who aren't allowed to look relieved that the old man is finally gone. Edmund never recovered from James's death, just lay in bed for 3 weeks staring at the ceiling, whispering his sons' names like a prayer or a curse. Benjamin, James, Charles. Over and over until one morning he didn't wake up. The doctor said stroke. Charles said grief. Both were right. Now Charles stands alone at his father's grave, and in front of him are 3 headstones in a row. Benjamin, James, Edmund. The entire Whitmore line dead in 3 months, except him. Charles is 25 years old and owns 400 acres of prime Georgia cotton land, 87 slaves, a white mansion with columns, everything he ever wanted. But he can't sleep, because something is wrong. Something has been wrong this whole time, and Charles is smart enough to see the shape of it even if he can't see the architect. The letters that started everything, Edmund's promises to both James and him, perfect forgeries, the ledgers showing James's embezzlement, perfect alterations, Benjamin's diary describing father's plot, perfect handwriting, too perfect, too coordinated, too precise. Someone did this. Someone invisible, someone smart, someone with access to the house and the papers and the family's secrets. Charles returns from the funeral alone. The house echoes. Every room feels too big, too empty, haunted by ghosts that won't stop whispering accusations. He walks upstairs to his bedroom, already planning to search his father's study again tonight, looking for evidence of the puppet master, looking for answers that might let him sleep. Then he sees it. A letter on his pillow, his father's wax seal, unbroken. Charles's hands shake as he picks it up. The letter is in Edmund's handwriting, perfect handwriting, the handwriting of a man who's been dead for 3 weeks. Charles's breath comes faster as he reads, "Charles, you think you've won. You think the plantation is yours now. But I know what you did. I know you manipulated James and Benjamin. I know you whispered rumors and planted suspicions. I know you wanted them dead so you could have everything. You think you were subtle. You weren't. I've changed my will. You inherit nothing. The plantation goes to charity. And everyone, the lawyers, the courts, the neighbors, will know the truth. That you're a murderer. That you killed your brothers as surely as if you'd pulled the triggers yourself. You have one way out. Confess. Tell everyone what you did. Maybe God will forgive you. But I won't. Your father, even in death." Charles reads it 3 times. His breathing gets faster, shallower. He runs to his father's study, tears through drawers, rips up floorboards, searches every shelf, every hidden compartment, every place Edmund might have kept a revised will. Nothing. But the letter is real. The handwriting is real. Which means father knew. Father knew Charles was manipulating his brothers. And father let it happen just so he could watch Charles destroy himself with guilt. Charles is wrong, of course. Edmund never knew, never wrote this letter, never changed the will. But Charles can't see that anymore. He's too far inside the maze Isaiah built, turning corners that lead only to more corners, searching for exits that don't exist. He runs into town, midnight, pounds on his father's attorney's door like a madman. The attorney, Samuel Crane, 60 years old, half asleep, opens his door in his nightshirt, and his face registers confusion, then fear when he sees Charles's wild eyes. "The will," Charles demands, voice manic. "Show me the new will." Crane's confusion deepens. "Charles, what new will?" Charles shoves the letter at him. My father's will. He changed it before he died. He wrote me. Crane takes the letter, reads it by candlelight. His face goes from confused to concerned. Charles, your father didn't change his will. I saw him 2 days before he died. He was barely conscious. He couldn't have written... Charles grabs Crane by the collar. You're lying. Crane tries to pull away. I'm not Charles, please. But Charles is beyond reason now. He knew what I did to my brothers. He was punishing me. Crane's voice rises in panic. What you did to Charles, what are you talking about? Charles shakes him. Show me the will. Show me where he cuts me out. Show me the evidence. Crane's wife screams from inside the house. Neighbors emerge from their doors, candles and lanterns bobbing in the darkness. Someone runs for the sheriff. When the sheriff arrives, Charles is in the street, raving about letters and plots and his father watching him from beyond the grave. He's crying, punching the dirt, screaming that everyone knows what he did. The sheriff restrains him, reads the letter. Mr. Whitmore, this letter, your father was dead when this was dated. Charles laughs, broken and terrible. That's the point! Don't you see? He planned it. He wanted me to find it after he died so I'd know he was still controlling me, even from... The sheriff's voice is gentle, pitying. Charles, I think you need rest. You've been through. Charles screams it to the whole street, to everyone watching. I killed them. I manipulated them. I pushed them. And Father knew and he let me because he wanted to see what I'd do. Silence, everyone stares. Charles's voice drops to a whisper, talking to himself now. But someone else knew too. Someone smarter than Father. Someone who's been moving us like chess pieces this whole time. He looks around wildly at the gathered crowd. Who are you? Show yourself. Nobody answers. The sheriff takes Charles into custody. The doctor examines him the next morning and declares him dangerously insane, suffering delusions of conspiracy, confessing to murders he didn't commit, paranoid that dead men are plotting against him. Charles is sentenced to hang not for killing his brothers, because there's no evidence of that, but for assaulting a respected lawyer and disturbing the peace while clearly insane and dangerous to society. At his execution 3 weeks later, Charles stands on the scaffold, rope around his neck, and speaks his final words to the crowd gathered below. Someone did this to us. Someone invisible. Someone we never saw. Find him. Make him pay. The trapdoor opens. Charles drops. His neck breaks. In the crowd, standing at the very back where no one notices him, Isaiah watches with a face that shows nothing. Then he turns and walks away. 3 brothers dead. 0 witnesses. 0 evidence. 0 suspicion. Perfect. September 1849. The Whitmore plantation falls silent. 3 sons dead. Edmund dead. The great house stands empty except for furniture and ghosts and questions nobody can answer. The Atlanta Constitution publishes a short article on page 6. Whitmore family tragedy concludes. Edmund Whitmore and his 3 sons, all deceased within 12 weeks under circumstances attributed to hereditary madness and family dysfunction. Estate enters probate. No direct heirs. Investigation closed. Hereditary madness. The official story. The story that makes sense to White. Men who can't imagine that someone they considered property could dismantle an entire dynasty using nothing but paper and patience and an understanding of exactly how to make powerful men destroy themselves. The 3rd night after Charles's execution, Isaiah makes his move. The overseer's keys still work. He unlocks the main house at midnight, no moon, just stars scattered across black sky, and walks to Edmund's study. Behind the false panel in the bookshelf, the lockbox Edmund thought was hidden. Inside, $3,000 in cash. The money Edmund accused James of stealing. The money that was here the whole time, waiting. Isaiah takes it, every bill. Then he walks to the slave quarters and wakes 40 people. His daughter Sarah, Martha, the field workers who trust him, the house staff who've kept his secrets. We're leaving, Isaiah says, voice quiet but certain. Where? Someone whispers. North. I've mapped the routes, contacted conductors, arranged safe houses every 30 miles. We move tonight, we move fast, and we don't stop until we're free. Someone asks why now, and Isaiah's answer is simple and perfect. Because there's no one left to chase us. And it's true. The Whitmore family is gone. The estate is in probate chaos. The neighbors are too busy gossiping about hereditary madness to notice slaves disappearing into the night. The sheriff wrote this whole disaster off as a family of lunatics destroying themselves. Nobody's watching. By dawn, 40 people are gone, walking through darkness, following Isaiah, carrying nothing but hope and $3,000 that will buy them passage on ships and safety in houses and new names in new cities where they can finally breathe. The Whitmore plantation wakes to find half its workforce vanished like smoke. Nobody ever finds them. The Philadelphia City Directory, 1851, lists an Isaiah Freeman carpenter living on South Street. Age 42. No history before 1850. Married. One daughter, Sarah, age 18. When asked about his past, neighbors recall him saying, "I came north looking for work. Found it. That's all that matters." In 1853, the Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society records show a donation, $500 from I. Freeman, Philadelphia. The note says, "For the cause, for those still waiting," but some records suggest a different path. The 1870 Atlanta census shows an Isaiah Freeman blacksmith, age 61, owns his shop on Decatur Street, lives with his daughter, Sarah Freeman, school teacher. When asked about the Whitmore plantation, he'd say, "Tragedy. Heard about it. Didn't know them. Some families just aren't meant to last." So which Isaiah is the real Isaiah? The Philadelphia carpenter or the Atlanta blacksmith? Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe he changed his name 5 times between Georgia and freedom. Maybe he split the group, half to Philadelphia, half to other cities, spreading the risk so no single capture could destroy them all. We don't know. What we do know, 40 people escaped the Whitmore plantation in September 1849 and were never recovered. What we do know, 3 sons died in 6 weeks without a mark on them from any outside hand. What we do know, an overseer named Isaiah worked the Whitmore plantation until August 1849, and then his name vanishes from every record like he was never there. In 2007, the Atlanta Historical Society found something, a letter, unsigned, dated 1892 in the corner, filed in a box marked Miscellaneous 19th Century. The letter describes, "In careful educated handwriting, a psychological operation conducted against the Whitmore family of Clayton County, 1849. It describes forged letters and manipulated ledgers and strategic information planted through slave networks. It describes 3 sons turned against each other until they destroyed themselves." The letter says, "I write this now because I am old and everyone involved is dead and perhaps someone should know the truth, even if that someone is just a stranger reading this 50 years later. I never touched them, never struck them, never even raised my voice. I simply showed them who they already were. Showed them what happens when men who think they're gods discover they're just men with weaknesses and fears and hungers that can be exploited. My daughter's name was Sarah. She was 16 years old. What James Whitmore did to her in that pantry took 4 minutes and destroyed something that couldn't be repaired. I could have killed James, could have found a knife, found a moment, found a way, but that would have been mercy. What I did instead was show him who his father really was, show his brothers who he really was, show them all the truth about themselves until they couldn't stand to be alive anymore. I made them kill themselves, and I made it look like madness. Was it justice? I don't know, but it was payment. Remember Sarah's name when you remember theirs. The letter isn't signed, but handwriting analysis done in 2009 compared it to signatures in the Whitmore plantation ledgers. Same hand, same distinctive capitals, same rhythm, Isaiah's handwriting. The Whitmore plantation was auctioned in 1850. The house burned down in 1866 during Sherman's March. Nothing remains now except 3 graves in a family plot that nobody tends, and the memory of a man who understood something the Whitmores never did. You don't need to be stronger than your enemy. You just need to be smarter and patient and willing to let them do the killing for you. History remembers the powerful, but 3 graves remember. 1 unsigned letter remembers. And now you remember too. What do you think happened to Isaiah? Did he make it to Philadelphia? Did he stay in Atlanta? Did he live long enough to see slavery end in 1865? 16 years after he walked away from the Whitmore plantation. And here's the question that matters most. If you were Isaiah, would you have done the same thing? Or would you have found another way? Drop your theories in the comments. If this story changed how you think about revenge, intelligence, and justice, hit that subscribe button. We're telling more untold stories every week. Stories that history tried to bury. Stories about the people who won without anyone knowing they were fighting. Some debts can't be paid. They can only be collected. And Isaiah collected every penny.